Yeah, yeah, exactly. Having the point of view, having what is described change according to who's doing the noticing is a great way to have a strong point of view. Military guy sees the exits, the fashion guru sees the outfits, right? Sometimes I'll be out with my guy friend and we walk in somewhere and he's like, man, did you see that girl? And I was like, no, but I clocked that donut as soon as we walked in. Exactly, right? And too, Katie, to your point about dialogue and making the characters sound distinctive, King of the Hill did such a good job with that. Like every character in that King of the Hill show is a Texan, but they don't all sound. Bobby does not sound like Hank, and Hank does not sound like Bill. Here's Nancy. Nancy's the only person who's going to call people Suge. Peggy doesn't do that, right? And they're all from the same town, but they still made them sound different. The one that I really think about a lot is the Golden Girls. God rest Betty White's beautiful soul, right? Like the fact that it is not usually about like we want a character to sound really Texan, right? It's not always about a bunch of ain't and y'all, right? It's about saying, it's like, well, if you get off too late, you just go on and take the whoop around lane. You come on back, right? Nobody else knows about a whoop around lane. We got them on every interstate, right? But in the Golden Girls, right? How Blanche would be the one to say, it's like, oh, Dorothy, I don't understand what you mean. She does why, like why Dorothy? Whatever do you mean, right? Whereas Rose will say, oh, Dorothy, I don't know about that, and it's little words, like little baby normal words that we all use every day. That can be employed just in a way that just gives a little bit of a special flavor to a language. Yeah. All right. Yeah. What else?
And you touched on this before, but we all have favorite words.
Yeah.
And I have one favorite historical author. He's English, but he apparently does his own editing, and his favorite verb is gallop, and he may go many pages without galloping, but every time, the action really flows, and he's got a wonderful pace, but then you get galloped in the face.
Yeah, and especially those standout words like that, like galloping, right? Like you really notice that when it shows up. Yeah, I think there's one author that I've been working with. She's doing medieval Irish saga about Brian Boru, who lived in the 10th century, right? This is his life, right? And one of the things that she does, say again. Yeah, well, we haven't got to that part yet. That'll be in book 2, but yeah, no spoilers. I don't know how it turns out, but one of the words that she uses a lot that I think actually is good to use a bunch is she will have her characters, like they say, well, do you deem him honest? Well, like deem, right? It's not an everyday now word. But it's a small word, and she's using it not always, but sometimes to replace the word thought or think, right? Do you think him honest, right? And that little word kind of really helps get in the historical groove, right? And I tease her about using it a lot, but maybe it's because it's not a punch you in the face word to me. It's not like, say, strangled, where you really notice, right? But yeah, sometimes little words like that, when they're well used, can give you that nice flavor that you're looking for. And it also helps if you're not your own editor. That's just good advice for living right there. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else on the small stuff, team, before we talk about feedback and critique partners and all that good stuff? Does anybody have an editing program that they like? You like Grammarly? Yeah. Is that one? Okay, so I got to be honest, Christine. I never really tried Grammarly because the YouTube ads just annoyed the dickens out of me. But I have heard many people really like it. Is it something that kind of learns your style? And
no.
Yeah. Oh no. Okay.
It doesn't learn your style, but the new paid version you can tell them, I want it formal, I want it creative. So you can sort of tweak what it's looking for.
Yeah.
And being, I don't know, what's the word? A comma abuser?
Mm-hmm.
One way or the other.
Yep.
I'm always either not enough or too many. It really helps with that. But it will say, lately it starts saying, let's rearrange this sentence. Especially a longer one.
Yeah.
This will, and I will read it that way, grammar this way, and I go, no, that's not what I'm saying.
No.
So, but sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, that is what I need to say.
Yeah.
So, that's the one I like.
Yeah, I like.
Just for first pass, you know.
So for Grammarly, yeah, you can set it to what kind of writing you're doing, so it knows whether to read it as if it's a resume or a novel or an email. Yeah, that's super helpful.
It catches the fours and froms.
Yeah. Pro Writing Aid is another one that I've heard that people like. Yeah. And the one that this is kind of far afield, but has anybody ever done Write or Die? Okay, this is less about your editing software. Write or Die is like it's a clock you while you write thing. And if you set it to hard mode, if you go too long without writing anything new, it starts deleting what you've written. I think I just gave Betty the vapors. I'm sorry. That was worth the trip to Amarillo just to watch that. That was good. But no, that's less of a clean up your writing and more of a get the words, like basically to force your inner editor to be quiet because your inner writer is being worked to its maximum. Just get stuff out. You don't have to set it to the death mode. You could just like let's just see if I can get 250 words in the next 15 minutes. Yeah.
I'm going to say something.
Mm-hmm.
Pro Writing Aid. I do subscribe, so I think I've got the free accounts. I get emails. And they occasionally offer really discounts, deep discounts. Like before Christmas, you could subscribe for 1 year, $1. $1, you would get the paid version for a year. But it was like for 4 days they had this sale going on. So if you were subscribing to have the free version, then watch for that bargain.
So that's Pro Writing Aid that runs a sales where like you get a whole year's worth of subscription for $1 if you're paying attention and get the emails. Yeah. So. You notice how life is really a lot less kind to people who aren't paying attention.
Like, or people that go, I'd rather pay $12 a month than like a year.
Yeah. You send that $12 my way, I'll take it. Yeah. I'll be your Pro Writing Aid.
I will send you $12 a month.
There you go. Sponsor an editor. All right. So we've talked about some line editing, copy editing type of things. For this part, that we're talking a little bit before the meeting started about feedback and critique groups and things like that.
Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Anybody can go back there. Okay. Before we start on this one.
Okay. So let's take a quick break. Let's do it. It's now 11:20. How long should we go?
10 minutes long enough? Yeah, and then play a song. Okay.
Okay. Let's break here and then we'll come back in 10 magical minutes. Okay.
Mic is officially turned on.
All right. Okay. So we were talking about all kinds of amazing things, but yeah, this is the hard thing about writing, right? Is you write something and your head is so full of what you meant to write. How do you know what you have actually written? Right. Okay. So thinking about that, especially because it sounds like you guys have a critique meeting coming up, right? A couple of thoughts. One is, when you think about your work and how you want to invest in it, I think about like kind of a time and money slider sort of thing here. If you have all the time in the world, but you don't have 2 nickels to rub together, that's kind of like where Stephen King was when he wrote Carrie, right? Some of you've read his memoirs and that, right? Just like couldn't keep the lights on in the mobile home, basically, right? So he had some time to write, but he didn't have money to pay, for kind of professional editing. So what can you do if that's your situation? Yeah, trade critiques, right? Say, listen, I'll critique mine if you critique yours, or vice versa, right? Yeah, you have a little time, so you could trade for help with other people. On the other end of the slider, JFK wrote Profiles in Courage, which means he basically paid for it to be ghostwritten, right? That's what all celebrities do. It's like you can pay for professional drafting, professional editing, professional whatever, right? And the thing that I think about a lot is that where you set that slider, time versus money. Do you have the time to critique other people? Do you have the money to go to a writer's conference and get a professional opinion or pitch your work or something like that, right? Where you set that slider matters less than the total size of your investment in your work. And here is the thing, team. If you are working 3 jobs, if you have no time and no money, right? If you are really squeezed, that is okay. I just want to make sure you know that you cannot compare your results to the results that you're seeing other people in your group get, because they can write all day long if they want to, or they can afford to have a big fancy editor come in, right? It's like the people who are, the people who go to the Olympics, right? They can train all day. They got personal trainers. The young kids have parents whose full-time job is coaching them. We can't compare ourselves to those people when we're working, 12 hours a day and just trying to find an hour to work out at the end of it, right? So before we talk about, the in-depth stuff, I really want to put that out there, that when you are when you're trying to get help for your work, think about what you have to barter with. If you don't have very much, that's okay. I just don't want you to feel like something a cat dragged in when other people, like they're around you, or have a different experience, right? Thinking about these connections, about where you find good people. First of all, here, you're already doing the right thing. You are already here, so I know that you are already a person who has connections. If you need something that nobody in your immediate sphere can offer you, right? If you need specialized help, I do recommend looking for a guild, a group, some kind of organization. So like if you don't, let's say if you want a professional copy editor, right, who can really clean it up, or if you want somebody who can format your book for Kindle, right, and if you don't know anybody like that, if there's not anybody here who does that, right, I highly recommend looking for a group of people, right, because those groups tend to police themselves. They tend to filter out a lot of the lone wolves and the shady characters who just want to take your money and run, right? So, for example, the Editorial Freelancers Association is a national organization. We have a chapter of the EFA in Dallas. I don't actually know if there's one up here. But the EFA is a huge national organization with lots of local chapters. They even publish on their website what you can expect to pay for lots of different services, from not just like copy editing or developmental editing. They got stuff in here about indexing, right? We're talking about nonfiction during the break a little bit. If you need help indexing your work, doing that thing at the back, right? What you should expect that to cost, right? It's a great organization. And that will help to, every time that somebody has come to me and said, Tex, do you know anybody who could do X and Y? It's been the easiest thing in the world for me to say, oh, I don't know them, but let me connect you with Leslie and Ingrid over at the Dallas EFA, because they've got a whole babysitters club of editors who can say, okay, so you're writing a young adult thriller. We've got these 3 people who specialize, who really like to do a lot of that work. I would recommend, here are their names, here are their contacts. Yeah. I think, unfortunately, there is no credential for editing. You know what I mean? Like anybody can hang out their shingle and call themselves an editor, right? So anytime you're looking for services, I think looking for a reputable group first can really be helpful. And of course, personal recommendations. Who's Mike used to edit his book? Who does he really like? Who does Christine, who do you know? Like you've been talking to Fox Press. Are they cool and interesting? Maybe, you can talk to her about that. Yeah. It is, I think, really helpful, regardless of whether you're paying for an editor or you're just trading with a friend. I super duper recommend giving single chapters first, because how many of you guys have had this experience? Your friend says, oh, you're writing a book. I want to read it. It's like, yeah, I'll give you chapter 1 if you want. And it's like, no, send me the whole thing. I want to read the whole thing. And then what happens? Alien abduction. They disappear off your radar like Jimmy Hoffa, right? And then you're like, oh my God, was it that that bad? Is it terrible? Is it suck? You know? And it's like, no, they just didn't get around to it, and they were too ashamed to tell you they didn't get around to it, and now you have to resent them forever. And no one wants that, right? So let's not do that. Let's say, no, the rest of it's still under wraps. Let me give you chapter 1. Because then, if they ghost you, or their feedback is brutally unhelpful, or it's, whatever the thing is, you don't have to lie awake at night wondering, is this entire project just unspeakable garbage? Because they didn't see the whole project, right? They just saw chapter 1. And that's on them, man. No. Right. So I really think giving one chapter first, that'll help preserve your relationships, if nothing else. Right. It will also help you notice what those readers are good at noticing. Right? Because here's the thing, right? Is a good reader is probably better. There's something that they're really good with, better than others, right? I have a friend of mine who is amazing at thinking about. He's my best guy for choreographing fight scenes. He is the guy who can really, I can come to him with whatever. I was like, okay, so my guys are on the side of the mountain. There's like this kind of like bridge thing that's going around the curve with the rock to the left, and we have one guy, and the horse is actually dead, but it's walking along because we have the one guy who's, we got magic powers, and he's walking the horse. As long as he's touching the horse, it can walk. And then there's these other people, and then the frog monster shows up and leapfrogs over them, and there's this big hole right there, and that makes the bridge start to collapse. Now what? Right, and he will roll with it. He's like, okay, so send the horse guy off the side of the mountain. Then the horse collapses. That's going to counterweight this. So then we can use this, and trap the other guy under the dead weight of the animal carcass. And then I'm like, sweet, yes. So that's the thing. That's his superpower. He is amazing at that. He is my guy, and I don't want to deploy him until what? How? Right. I need to know where the fight scenes are and who's involved in them, and where they go in the book first before I ask him to read, right? I need to know who's fighting. I need to be really sure that we are having a fight right here with these characters for this reason. Then it's time to give it to him, right? So I don't want him. He's not one of my first line guys. He's actually for like round 2 or 3 or something like that. What about a person who is really, really great at thinking about character motivations? What point in the process do you want them to help read?
Early.
You want to get those guys in early, right? Why are we doing this quest? Why are we taking this assignment or going on this mission? And why is it these two people being put together, right? Yeah, that's a reader you want to get in early in the process. What about somebody who is the comma queen, who actually knows where the commas go and will tell you about that in a gentle manner? That's a late person, right? Yeah. So that's the thing, is by giving these single chapters first, you can not only screen out the people who aren't helpful, but it'll help you classify the people who are helpful, so you know when you want them to read your big picture stuff, your whole thing. Each reader can only read with completely fresh eyes once. So, they can read multiple times, but it's only going to be new to them one time. So I think it's a really good idea to be thoughtful about, who's on your team and when do you want them to get involved and help you out. And then likewise, think about the kinds of things that you are good at noticing when you read for other people. Are you a person who is really good at finding plot holes? Because if you are, you may want to offer early help and say, listen, I know your draft might be a hot mess. I promise I'm not going to give you a grief about the commas or whatever. But if you'd like me to read and just see, does the plot hold up and make sense, I'd be glad to do it. Think about your own superpowers too. And then what we want to do, right, is look for points of convergence in that feedback. There's this, we live in Texas, right? So the saying, if 3 people tell you you're drunk, lie down. Right. If one person says, this was too slow. It was too slow to get started. And another person says, oh man, that was just ripping right along, right? Well, it's hard to know what to think about that, right? Are there things that would, if you're getting completely different feedback from 2 completely different people, what would help you weight that feedback? What determines who you pay more attention to?
Which is your better friend?
Which is your preference? Which one do you know will tell you if those jeans are not flattering? So yeah, first of all, let's get more votes, right? Yeah. So we need to have more data points, right? And I think it's also useful when you're weighting that feedback. Which of those people read a lot in your genre? Right? Because that's the thing is anybody can give you their own their own opinion, but somebody who reads somebody who fits the profile of your ideal reader, right? Like if you're writing young adult, and you have actual young adults telling you this is a little slow, we might listen to them more than like 40 or 50-year-old people who are it's nice if they like the book too, but that's not necessarily who you're writing directly for. Yeah. So we want to look and see what comments you keep getting, right? We are wanting to start treating this, like when you're writing something, it's art. When you're selling it, it's business. Mm-hmm. And so we are starting with this critique process to get into business mode, right? And so we're starting to think about your work, and think about like how Frito-Lay treats its products. Right? They don't just make up a new chip and stuff it on the shelf and see who buys it. They do market research. They try it out on different groups of people. They do what are those things called? Focus groups. Yeah. And so they will put those chips in front of lots of different people of different ages, genders, backgrounds, whatever, to notice who likes it, who doesn't, and what they say. And once they get that feedback, there's two choices, right? We can either change the product, or we can change who it's for. So if we made these chips and we thought that they were going to be a real big hit with the 18 through 25-year-old male demographic, the guys who are out there, skating and surfboarding and drinking Mountain Dew, but it turns out that it's actually middle-aged women who just love these chips and then just adore those chips. Okay, we don't actually have to change the recipe, we change the marketing. Right? These are no longer, extreme Doritos. These are now hot flash Cheetos. And they're going to be amazing. Yeah. We need to gather data points and sort them. Here's the thing. I should have written this down up here because it's super important, but you're just going to have to listen with your ears instead of looking with your eyes. Y'all, you are not done when everybody agrees that your book is amazing. That's not going to happen. Right? You are done when people no longer agree on what's wrong with it. Right? If you can no longer get 5 people to agree that your opening is too slow, probably a pretty good opening now. You know what I mean? You've broken up those points of convergence, and now there's room for disagreement about what you have written. Right? So that's the thing. We're not trying to we cannot achieve universal acclaim. All you gotta do, see about that, is go to Amazon, look up your favorite books, and read the 1-star reviews. Right? But what we can do is look for those points of convergence and try to address that feedback, and either get to a point where we can break up the clumps so there's actually a variety of opinions about the beginning of your story, or say this is a story that is supposed to be a slow boiler. I'm going to market it that way, right? Like if you need instant action, that's not what this is for. And I'm going to do everything I can in the titling of the book and in the blurbing on the back and in the Amazon free sites, look inside sample to make sure you understand what you're getting before you buy it, so you're not disappointed. Yeah. Say again?
And you'll still disappoint me.
Oh yeah. No, look, we are here to amaze and disappoint, right? But I notice, like a lot of times, when a book is not well reviewed, it's because its beginning made the wrong promises about what kind of story it was going to be. One of the things I think George R. R. Martin did really right with Game of Thrones was he put the gory stuff right up front. Whether you watch the show or you read the books, it's like, okay, we are opening with twin incest and attempted child murder. And if that is not your jam, exit here, before you buy the book, right? It's the Amazon free sample, right? You can get off the train right then because he's made it very clear where we're going. Yeah, and that's all we need to do, whatever you're selling, right? We need to make really sure that we're never putting you in a point where the box says Fruit Loops, but Raisin Bran comes out. Right? I like how that got a bigger wince than the child murder. Right. But yeah, so serial duplicity. I'm going to have a character named that. Next time I write a Charles Dickens book, serial duplicity is going to be the amateur sleuth. Yeah. I'll give you a quarter for every copy. And then finally, I would, we were talking about this a little bit ago. I am a big believer in sensible advice makes sense, right? Neil Gaiman mentioned this. I think he was really onto something. He says, people who notice a problem with your work are usually right. People who suggest a solution are usually wrong. Oh, no. And, oh no. Oh, what are we going to do? Well, no, for real, team, here's the thing. Here's the phrases that I think will actually save your life when you're working with an editor. Whether that editor is arranged for you by your publishing house or someone that you hired, right, is they come with you, this person to whom you have entrusted your baby, and they want some absolute wackadoo thing that just feels completely wrong for your vision, for the book or whatever. What you can say, and what you should say is, hear what you're saying, I'm open to making changes, can you tell me more about the problem that you want me to address? Because if we can do that, if we can decouple their boneheaded wrong idea, solution, from what very well may be a legitimate issue that you do need to address, you will have a better chance of resolving that in a way that feels much, much better, right? I was working with, and you may have heard me tell this story, but it's been a couple years, team. So I was working with this guy, my friend Bud Humble. He has this young adult science fiction story, and it's our kid Anders, and he finds this magical AI computer hologram, and she's amazing, and her name is Tamajitsu, right? And it's like, think about like Lilo and Stitch or Pete's Dragon or E.T., kid finds magic friend, chaos ensues, right? And I was getting on to Bud because Tamajitsu was so amazing. She solved every problem. And I was like, dude, too much. The protagonist is not protagging because the magical creature is doing all the work. And I was like, can we do something with her so that she is a liability as well as an asset? So she's a problem as well as a solution. Can we, she came from the dark side of the internet, right? So what is y'all's first thought?
Trouble.
Yeah, what if she's trouble? What if she's malware? What if she's a virus, right? And Bud was like, I don't want her to be bad. I hear what you're saying, but I don't want her to be evil. I was like, well, maybe she doesn't know she's evil. Maybe she's got a Trojan backdoor kind of thing installed in her, and it's going to cause a problem for her later on. He's like, yeah. And I could tell he just really wasn't into it. And then so I sat there and I thought a little bit, and y'all, what else do you get from programs you download for free from the internet? What if she has ads? What if she has pop-up ads, and they pop up at the worst possible time? And his face just lit up, right? And so we got to write this scene where, Anders is trying to break into the bad guy's mansion or something in the middle of the night, and he's talking to Tamajitsu and he's whispering into his headset. He's like, Tamajitsu, unlock the door. And her voice suddenly comes booming out of the mansion loudspeaker. She says, you can unlock these incredible savings, And Anders is like, no, right? And so, y'all, here's the point I want to make is, right, just like an author's first idea is often not their best, an editor's first suggestion or solution is often not their best either. And we were able to get to a fix. I found a real problem that he had. This creature was too magical and too powerful and both able and willing constantly, right? So I was right in noticing a problem, but I was wrong in my first solutions. And I am so glad that he had the guts to say, I hear what you're saying, I'm open to making changes. Can you tell me more about the problem that you want me to address so that we can work together to find a solution that was awesome, that did what we needed it to do and was super fun for him to write and is going to be super fun for his readers to read. That sort of thing only comes when you have the guts to work with that editor and say, okay, yes, but, will you think about this some more with me? And I would submit, right, that any editor who can only think of one way to solve a problem, not that good. Come find me. I'll give you 12 before breakfast, right? Right, this is English, as we were talking about, right? This is English, not math. There is more than one right answer, right? So really, team, please do. I firmly believe, like when accepting feedback is like going trick or treating. No matter what they drop in your bucket, you say thank you. Say thank you. And when you get home, you can throw away the Tootsie Rolls. Right? Okay. Give me a little rub. Right? But I hope that you will have the courage to sort through that feedback, to practice asking the questions that will help your feedback givers be more helpful to you. They may not ever be able to give you a solution, but you don't really need them for that. You just need them to help you find where the issues are. So you can maybe bring those issues to your writers group and say, guys, okay, some people are telling me that I got this thing here in the middle and it's super boring and dumb, and they've said I should do this and I don't want to do that. What else can we do instead? There's actually a writers group I work with in the Dallas area. They do twice a year. They do potluck parties where the group will come and everybody brings aside, it's potluck, right? And they just brainstorm together. They're like, okay, so somebody will say, okay, I'm writing like this Regency, kind of story, and there's just been a murder, and I need a place to hide the body on the estate grounds where it won't be found for a week. Where can we put it? And the writers love helping with that stuff. They're like, oh, I can think about that. Okay, how big is the place? How many buildings are there? What's the barn look like? So yeah, team, it's just, yes, please don't implement any solution that does not make sense to you. And I don't care how big a name you're getting it from, right? Sensible advice makes sense. It doesn't always feel good to realize there's a big thing you need to change. But I know that we've hit on the right solution when I'm working with a writer and we suggest something like the Tamajitsu pop-up ads, and their eyes light up. They're like, oh yeah, oh man, that's going to be a lot of work. When you're excited first and then realize what a pain it's going to be, then you know you're in the right zone. Yeah. Yeah. So this is what I have for you on beta readers, critique partners, gathering and using feedback. Is there anything else that you would like to think about in that vein? Yes, me?
I have one thing that I actually remembered as you were talking about the giving somebody one page or one chapter. I guess it was one page, yeah. Try giving like single chapters first. That also works really well if you're looking for an editor that's not shady, is you can ask them to do like the first 3 pages for you and see if what they're offering is actually a quality that you're willing to pay for your whole book. You don't have to do the whole thing or nothing.
Yes. Oh, that's a really good point. So basically, yeah, when you are soliciting a potential new paid editor, some of them will do free sample edits. They're like, oh, I'll do the first 3 pages and you can see if you like it. Some of them that are really popular, I've noticed they stop doing the free samples because they get really inundated, but they will say, listen, I'll do your first 3 pages for like $10 or something. Like a little bit of earnest money, but nothing like big, right? I think they're just doing that just to make sure that they screen out the people who would waste their time just to get 3 pages edited for a contest. But yeah, asking them to do a little piece first, I think that's a great way to kind of screen out the flaky people. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes?
Well, I told you I write nonfiction, but one thing that helps me from time to time is I'll take a section or a small section, 500 to 1,000 words of what I've written for the day or the day before, and I will post that on several of the Facebook groups that have similar interests to what I have. And sometimes, every now and then, that feedback will help me go back and clarify or rewrite or just make something better than it was. Occasionally just get rid of it.
Yes. Yeah, and that's, I'm glad you mentioned that too. If you post a small piece, getting comments about that can help you with bigger things. Yeah. Yeah, and it can be frustrating sometimes when you get feedback like, it's like, that was great, but I didn't care. Well, how do I make you care? Like, I don't know. Try again. But yeah, getting a lot of opinions about a small piece is also a great way. You know, if you haven't gotten a lot of feedback before and you're still very new and nervous about, like, this is my baby, what if they all hate it and say it's ugly? Well, maybe they can just hate a little bit of it first. Right? And it kind of builds up that thick skin that everybody tells you you're supposed to be growing. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. Well, I've got something. Okay. So my last big tip, right, is if I can be helpful to you guys, please do let me know. I was going to offer, I always offer at the, whenever I do one of these, I would be very glad to send you the PDF of this slide deck, now that you've gone to the trouble of writing it all down. Yeah, hey, it's January, you needed a workout. Yes, if you would like the PDF slides, I'd be very glad to send those to you. All I need would be your email address, and maybe if you guys, I don't know, I can send them to you, and you can send them to everybody, whatever, however we want to do that. But yes, please do look me up if I can be helpful to you going forward. My email address is tex@thetexfiles.com. It's like the X-Files, but it's the Tex Files. But I can tell you already that just by your being here, well, first of all, you had the good sense to listen to me, so clearly you're a person of superior class, taste, and sophistication. But you belong to a group. You are with other writers. You are working, even though you work on your own projects, you are pulling with people who are pulling in tandem, and you already have a huge array of resources right here that a lot of the people I worked with would kill for. They're by themselves. They don't have a connection. You know what that feels like. So I'm so glad to get to kick off the year with you here. I'm really glad that the group is still alive and going and kicking and better than ever. And I'm so excited at what y'all are going to be doing this year. So if you are stoked, if you are pumped, if you are ready to get words done, please also think about what you can be doing to help out the Texas High Plains writers too. A group like this takes effort to run. It takes people to bring the Cheetos, So I really appreciate your hospitality and your enthusiasm, and if I can give you any help once I'm back to the Big D, please let me know, because that'll be the next best thing to being back here again.
I did was one. Yeah. She's great. She's great.
Yeah.
But where are you best in the process?
I'm a big picturist. What I like to do, the only thing I do, right? You know how like In-N-Out Burger just does burgers and fries and like that's it? Right. Okay. What I do, people send me their manuscript. I will read it all in one sitting, like a binge reading 12-year-old. Get on the phone with you. It's like, oh my gosh, let's have a talk. Oh my goodness, what are you doing? What about this? What about this? And we will do big picture developmental work in live real time. Like we're talking about with Bud and Tamajitsu. It's like, what about this? No. What about that? Oh yes, right. I am not a person to sit, and I don't have the attention span to sit and write comments on every page, but I'm a very, very good book doula. Story that is in you is not in me, but I can help it come out of you in a way that causes minimal damage, right? And I love to help people get excited about what they're writing and see different possibilities about where it could go next. So if you have a whole draft or part of a draft or a big, juicy, delicious new idea, I will get on the phone with you any day of the week.
I will tell you, and Donna and Tim have read all of the book. That I was probably 15,000 words in, stuck. I don't know where to go next. Send it to text. 90 minutes on the phone. Best investment. Because then we started writing. So.
Metafictional, metamucil, baby. Thank you for preaching the gospel, Christine. Yeah. I so appreciate that. Okay. Anything else from organizers? Anything we need to know? Do we need help clean up? We got other meetings coming up. I'm turning the floor over to you.
No, just next. Oh, raffles.